Greetings, various people across the randomized spectrums of time, indeed the multiverse. I am Alexander Gordon Johans, and I just watched Fight Club. Well, I watched it last night, and you can read a blog I wrote. But suffice to say, this film struck a chord with me. In a kind of a sort of wake-up call sense, also, to a certain extent, because I've spent the last 2 years, essentially kicking the can down the road of just like fighting this crisis, fighting that crisis, dealing with this bullshit, dealing with that drama, and just trying to keep going from one load of horseshit to another. And I spent the past 2 years unemployed, generally without volunteering, generally without a fucking clue what's going on in my life. And there haven't been drugs involved because I am very aware of like the danger of drugs and drink and alcohol. But my sleeping pattern is fucked up, and I am someone who has been going through a lot of shit, has been facing the quarter life crisis and the sort of the crisis of masculinity. That's pretty much what getting diagnosed with Kalman syndrome when you're a young man guarantees, is a crisis of masculinity, and a crisis of faith in your own masculinity. And obviously, I went into Fight Club knowing that the narrator is Tyler Durden. And surprisingly, like, it's not one of these, films like Shyamalan or something Stephen Moffat would write, whereby the writer clearly just gets so far along and then says, "How do we end this? Aha! Well, let's have someone be revealed to be someone else," right? Like, no. From the very beginning, you know what's gonna fucking happen, right? Like, the film knows, the film indicates, it makes sense. And so, yeah, obviously, to a certain extent, this film came out in the 90s, and, I may be a hipster who only, watches films and things after they've ceased to be cool, but ironically enough, I think I was going to watch Guardians of the Galaxy because I was in this kind of weird mood that night, because essentially I've the last week or so I have been managing to live a reasonably okay life, feeling reasonably okay by essentially taking pain pills and caffeine pills whenever the energy and pains started to get bad again. And kind of I watched Fight Club at the end of a day when basically the painkillers and the caffeine pills just weren't fucking working. And so it was a case of, I'm gonna watch Guardians of the Galaxy, and I changed my mind and watched Fight Club. And I am trying hard to avoid talking about the elephant in the room here, aren't I? Which is that obviously there is there is a certain amount of scary identifiability with the narrator, and how it's like and how the narrator created this idealized version of himself, and that he then sort of ends up getting confused for, right? I mean, okay, in my case, I was literally just a fucking writer writing a piece of fiction, okay? But at the end of the day, ultimately, I am the guy who has somehow made money off doing a vlog talking about his life on a channel branded for the fictional character of my fiction. For the fictional character of my fiction. Department of Redundancy Department. I am someone who is, making money off doing a vlog about my life on a channel branded for this idealized version of myself as a fictional character in the form of the Farshnook, right? I mean, the Farshnook actually is not an idealized version of myself in that he's kind of the epitome of like the best and worst of myself. Like he is the Farshnook is not just my id, he is everything I despise about myself. He is the straw man version of myself. Not just the things I want to be, but the things I fear I could be. The things I never want to be. Because it's more interesting as a character. But so yeah, there was a certain amount of like, okay, yeah, this is a bit eerie, and the fact that, yeah, I've spent the last 2 years essentially vacillating from problem to problem to problem, unable to really get a grip on my life and find any sort of fucking momentum. I mean, the fucking narrator at the beginning of Fight Club has got his life better together than I do. Right? When the guy going through a fucking mental breakdown because his life is so shitty has a better life than you, yeah, things aren't fucking great. And so I can understand a lot of this, you know. And I really do appreciate the sort of the work gone into this film, and the fact that the writer, the director, and the actors, everybody clearly knew the message and what kind of film they were making, right? This wasn't a rushed out job. This wasn't a make it up as you go along thing. There are fun moments of improvisation, but everything is fucking thought about. And it's like, I don't like films or stories or narratives in general that try to present too obvious a fucking moral message. I mean, I suppose that's why I like Star Trek Voyager as a Star Trek series most, because it is so inconsistent, right? Like, how do you manage to have sort of a grey morality spectrum when you are a show that regularly has message shows? Well, you have an inconsistent set of writing, so that therefore you deliver entirely contrasting points of view. So that one week it's, the Prime Directive is evil. We must do what we think is best. And next week it's the Prime Directive is the best way to be, and we must respect the Prime Directive entirely. I don't like any sort of media that is too overtly putting a message across. Fight Club doesn't really have a message per se. Fight Club has a narrative and it has valid criticisms. And I suppose the problem is that it does call attention to a problem that men have. But it's not the problem the characters think the men have. And it's not the problem that so many men think they have, right? I'll explain in a moment, but first I need to kind of finish off this point. I know, rare for me to actually logically try to address one topic after another, but as I said, I already sort of wrote a blog about this last night, so. The points it raises about, consumerism being problematic are valid. And the plot is then about the sort of the characters trying to solve this problem. And the message doesn't say outright explicitly the way these characters are going about solving this problem is evil. The movie doesn't outright go on to explain that it doesn't lecture. It doesn't tell you these characters are doing an evil thing, these characters are doing a good thing. What it shows you is, by the time it starts criticizing the route the characters have gone down to address the issues they find with society, it has become a much more personal story of saying, no, these guys are fucked up because they're doing fucked up shit, right? It's not so much lecturing you about how, and don't do this thing, as it is saying, yeah, and here's one way you could do it, but the people who are doing it are also raving monsters, right? Which, I realise isn't necessarily much of a delineation, but it's allowing you to infer that, okay, bad idea, don't fucking do this, as opposed to saying, like, outright, and yes, all the things that Tyler Durden did were bad, right? And indeed, I think it is possible to kind of almost see the actions of Tyler Durden, right? Aside from, elements of it which are clearly just, like, his methods are problematic. And he does some fucked up shit that is clearly like he's the villain. You're not supposed to... Villain being villainy, right? But I think, there is a sort of case to be made that kind of almost, Tyler Durden is a sort of socialist taking the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few mentality, and almost saying, okay, consumerism and commercialism has fucked up society. We need to do something. We need to wipe the slate clean. We need to. I know that people have, said, oh well, these actions, they would they would, cause a great banking apocalypse. No, the reason that the that the that the Great Recession happened, which is one of the criticisms I will talk about Fight Club later. The reason the Great Recession happened was because there were all these debts going on that were dangerous, and that the banks were trading illegally, and well, not illegally, but there were all these dodgy debts that couldn't be paid back, and essentially the reason the crash happened was you had this boom period while all these people could get easy loans, and then the banks gambled on this money. They lost this money when the loans couldn't be paid back, and then you had a slump in borrowing, a slump in spending, and therefore the economy got worse and worse and worse, right? So, if you imagine, if you take this is movie land, right? And so, the villain's plan will work, right? Because generally the idea is that unless you see the plan go wrong, a plan just works, right? The unseen plan will work flawlessly. It doesn't matter if it flies in the face of logic or reality or physics, right? It just works because Hollywood. So if you take the idea that, okay, Tyler Durden's going to blow up the credit card companies, right? And that's going to make things better. Well, okay, what he does is he goes about this action in a way that actually doesn't hurt innocent civilians. I mean, yes, okay, buildings going down is going to cause disruption, and that's going to cause problems, right? But, again, assuming movie logic, this guy has thought about this shit. He's got enough people in positions to say, like, you know what, we're going to stockpile the food, make sure that the shops have got enough food so disruptions are, like this guy knows what he's going to do. He's planned stuff in advance to minimize the damage caused by the disruption of the things going down. He's got people in positions to stop any innocent civilians or whatever from being caught in the blast and what have you. He's made sure the buildings are empty, right? He's just going to destroy the bank records of the credit card companies. What he's basically doing is stopping the 2008 Wall Street crash before it happened, right? He is saying, okay, right, okay, this was before anybody knew any of this damage, right? But no, watching this in hindsight, as a millennial whose life has been fucked over by the fucked economy, right? The idea of this guy saying, yeah, we're gonna wipe out the credit card records. It's like, yeah, you know what? Maybe that would have been a good thing. Maybe if you'd have done that, then, we wouldn't have had the crash when the loans couldn't be paid back, and at the same time people could have kept borrowing, the spending could have continued, the economy could have continued. And also at the same time, right, the reason that the economic crash happened in the first place was because there were all these dodgy credit card stuff. Well, not just credit card stuff. The reason it happened was because there were all these dodgy loans being traded away, right? If you wipe out the credit card records, then, well, the banks don't have anything to barter on, right? Not only do you prevent the fallout from people who then are shown to have bad credit card records and can no longer get and can no longer borrow and thus keep the economy flowing, but you also maybe even stop the problem from getting to crisis situation in the first place, because there isn't financial incentive to gamble, for these banks to gamble on all this stuff anyway. Like, maybe if Tyler Durden does this, he seems to be going about this in a reasonably pacifistic way. He's clearly villainous and whatever, but maybe if he does this, things are better off. Like, maybe you can genuinely see that basically, watching this now, that the end of the film is Tyler Durden having, you know, single-handedly through Fight Club, having prevented the banking crisis and the whole great economic crisis, and therefore preventing the rise of Donald Trump. Right? Like, which is kind of, you know, hilarious, considering that, you know, the film in the real world, you know, arguably had a large part to do with why Donald Trump got elected, in the sense that, you know, all this stuff about snowflakes and what have you, has elements tied to Donald Trump, and indeed the elements tied to Fight Club, and indeed this whole sort of thing you witness was in the alt-right of almost a proud white terrorism, which Fight Club presents the sort of the villains as doing, right? So it's I present this sort of perspective of, like, you know, and then Tyler Durden saves us all from the economic crisis by blowing up a bunch of empty buildings. Not to kind of say, yes, that's totally the movie's message, but to say, like, that means you have the ambiguity so that I don't feel like I need to instinctually rally against this movie because it's banging its message too hard. Like, no, its message is, okay, this guy may depending on your perspective, have a not terrible plan. It may actually succeed in making things better, and it may be that he's going about it as least terribly as he can, but the guy's still really, really not good, right? Like, it's not pulling a Star Trek and then I knew that the moral of the story was, right? It allows you to make up your own mind. So I love that Fight Club does that. But the problem that creates is that Fight Club says there are problems in the world, which there were and there are, and then it presents one solution and gives no other solution, right? It doesn't matter if the solution you are giving is bad and you are saying this solution is bad, right? You are still saying the world is fucked, here's a solution. It's a bad solution, it's a terrible solution, it's a stupid, evil solution, it's a solution, right? And if you've got no other solutions, well, let's use the solution. Anyway, I'm now going to sort of, because it's about 30 minutes in, I'm gonna go have piss, and then I'm gonna sort of talk about those things I alluded to earlier, the tangents that I refused to kind of go to until I had tackled how, for me, I liked the topic of the film and how it stayed on topic. But now, yeah, I'm gonna talk about my criticisms of kind of the message it tries to portray, and also just generally how the message, how there is a kind of message that well, not message, but there is a problem it calls attention to that it's not even aware that it's talking about. Okay, so after the sort of quasi intermission there, at least for me, let's talk about the issue of the film, whereby it presents a problem with society and suggests a solution, despite thinking that that solution is a bad thing and stating that that solution is a bad thing. Because we do have a problem in society with men, right? It is shitty to be a man in the world. And I'm gonna talk about this kind of in a roundabout way, but I need to first talk about something else, which is that they have found with conspiracy theorists that part of the reason that they believe conspiracy theories is that it is comforting to believe that somebody has a plan, that all this terrible shit that is happening in the world is in the best interests of somebody, that there is some higher purpose, some higher meaning, that the suffering exists for a reason, right? They want to believe that society is functioning properly, even if the way that it is functioning is for evil, you know. It is more comforting for these people to believe in horrible, horrible conspiracies and manipulation and killings and things that would make you utterly paranoid than it is to address the stark reality that sometimes shitty things just happen. That people don't, that there is no grand plan, that people maybe barely have a plan for what they're gonna do that operates to make them better for their own greed and self-interest. But even then, these people are stupid. They make mistakes. They get tired. They get angry. They get emotional. They get high. They're human. They make mistakes. Humans are stupid and greedy and selfish, and even when we have plans, we fuck them up. There is no mass coordination. There is no massive plan. There is just a whole bunch of fuckwits fucking shit up because we're humans, and that's what we do, even when we want the best for everyone and we have plans for how to achieve that. Right? We're humans. We fuck shit up, and we can't coordinate things on this kind of scale. Nobody knows entirely what is happening and when, and nobody is coordinating everything, right? Politics is just a shit show of all these different people working together out of united self-interest, stabbing each other over in the back, just trying to get ahead for their own self-interest, being stupid, making mistakes, and there isn't a reason. There isn't some overarching conspiracy. And that's the problem with being a white man. We don't have anybody else to blame. You know, the women and the black people and the gays and trans people, you know, all these different demographics can look at the white man, because the white man does undoubtedly rule the world, right? We are the 1%. We are we are the vast majority of CEOs, politicians, media moguls, you know, basically the most powerful organizations and people in the world are white men. And the vast majority of them in those roles are white men, are cisgendered, straight, heterosexual white men. And so we don't get to believe the comforting lies that, oh, everything would be better if only we could be in charge, right? Because yes, we do. We run the world, right? We are fucking over other people, right? It is staggering how we have essentially set up our society to be a perfect brainwashing machine for women, right? In nature, women control society because women control reproduction, and that means woman is God. If the woman wants to eat you alive, you will climb into her fucking mouth and you will rub yourself against her gums, because damn it, it's the only way to pass on your genes. But we have patriarchy, right? And I say that, and it's like, oh, maybe patriarchy is a good thing then, right? And this is how I find myself, you know, catching this and being like, hang on. There is a sense to where maybe if you're a guy, you kind of like the fact that we've got these systems protecting ourselves. But we've gone too far, right? We went too far. We went to, because once we had removed the power of the woman to control society through the fact that she created life, then we were stupid, greedy shits, and we said, you know what, we could go a little bit further with this, a little bit further, a little bit there, a little bit there, and so, the suffragettes movements and all the and women's liberation and all of this stuff has gone on to kind of push back the barriers, but we still have got a perfect machine called society to brainwash women that what they really want to do is look nice and pretty for all the men in society, and that, you know, they tell themselves, oh, I do this for me. I'm not dressed, you know, showing off my body in all these tight clothes, wearing all this makeup so that I can make other people happy. I'm doing it for me. Yes, you're doing it for you because we as men have set up society to brainwash you to believe this is what you want, right? We have and do screw over women all of the fucking time, right? And even the people who are like, oh, well, there is no pay difference because women just choose to work in different professions. Yeah, and why do you fucking think they choose to work in different professions? Because we set up society to brainwash women that they aren't supposed to do certain kinds of jobs, that they aren't supposed to be interested in certain kinds of things, that they are supposed to do this, they are supposed to do that, that they are supposed to behave how society considers fit. And, you know, we are fucking over black people as well. You know, it's undeniable that, like, white men can stage an armed protest and seize government property, and, like, no shots are fired, everything is calm, hey, we're going to wait this out. We want to be calm about this. A black kid is suspected of stealing a chocolate bar. He's shot to death because he's a black man. He stole a chocolate bar, so we've got to kill him dead. And it's trans people can't go to the fucking bathroom in America. You know, you elected a president who fucking boasted about committing sexual assault, but hey, we can't let trans people go to the bathroom because people who commit sexual assault might take advantage. The hypocrisy is startling. Utterly fucking startling. Like, the only time right-wing people give the slightest fucking shit about gay people is when brown people are hurting them. Right? The only time douchebags give a shit about rape victims is when brown people are abusing them. Right? We do oppress all these other people. But again, it's not some grand plan. It's not like there is some office of patriarchy somewhere saying, oh yes, well, obviously we've got to organize everything so that the women keep being nice and submissive. So makeup people, if you could keep advertising that women are supposed to be insecure in their bodies, and yes, movie stars, if you could please make sure to movie star unions, if you could please make sure to only hire people who've got an unrealistic standard of beauty. Yes, and writers, make sure that you only write women in passive roles as sex object rewards for the men. There is no plan. There is no organization that is... There is no puppeteer pulling the strings. There is no conspiracy. What there is a whole bunch of separate people united by stupidity and greed. And like, you know, I've discussed before the idea of like patriarchal momentum, that maybe at one point there was outright conspiracy and manipulation, and you know, this is the only way to maintain our the only way to keep track of things in terms of who owns what is to keep track of the people who make the babies, right? Because you know, that's the only way you can have a clue about inheritance, or you know, who gets to inherit the throne, is if you know which child belongs to what, right? So you've got to regimentedly control the rights and the movement of women, right? But we don't live in that day and age anymore. We don't have organizations for the oppression of women. In fact, we have the opposite. We have all of these offices around the world in different government departments and in different corporations that are about balancing and counteracting against the patriarchy, and still individual greed and self-interest feeds the beast. Individual greed, self-interest, and stupidity keeps this shit rolling and rolling and rolling, right? We don't oppress gay people and trans people and what have you because, well, it says here on this list that we should do this because it will help our figures, right? I mean, yeah, okay, Republicans do genuinely talk about how, you know, it will help their voting figures if they crack down on the amount of black people voting, right? But even so, that might be a sort of a memo on one subsection of things, but like the vast majority of people who are going to be enacting this stuff have still got to believe it, have still got to honestly think this is important, you know, like even when there are conspiracies that take place, they can only have any power because the people happen to also believe in them, right? Because, you know, we do actually have a positive conspiracy to end discrimination, and it isn't working so well. Because you can't just tell people, well, you need to do this so you can meet your targets, because they're people and they're stupid and they're greedy and they make mistakes. Even when there are plans, even when there are conspiracies, the majority of the world still happens because the vast majority of people are selfish and stupid and they make mistakes. And the problem we have as white men is we don't have scapegoats. We don't have a fancy to believe in that lets us keep going. You know, we don't have the convenient lie. I mean, how do you think, you know, black people and women and gay people and trans people have kept going for so many centuries and thousands of years of being oppressed? Because they knew there was some kind of point and purpose. The problem we have as white men is we know there isn't. Right? This is the whole reason Tyler Durden's philosophy is enchanting and nice to believe in. This is the whole reason why Alex Jones and Sargon of Akkad and Thunderfoot and Donald Trump and Milo and Steve Bannon, this is the reason all these fucking numpties have any kind of power and appeal, because they are suggesting to the white man, no, you are not in this situation because the world is harsh and meaningless, and sometimes terrible things just happen because people are greedy and stupid and they fuck up and there is no plan. Right? All these people have power and appeal because they say, no, you, white man, you are trod down upon by these people and 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 these people. Right? Fuck Karl Marx. His whole fucking philosophy is like, yes, you know, all you people who are being shat upon, you are being shat upon by these people. And if you can only overthrow them, then the world will be a better place. And this is how you see people going from, you know, Marxism or Leninism or Trotskyism to suddenly being members of the Conservative Party or the far right, because you go from there is a plan and a purpose, we are being fucked over, to there is no plan, there is no purpose, but there is still order to the world, because if you just try hard enough, you will get ahead, right? It's almost like they rebel against the idea of authoritarianism as the answer by suggesting that ultra-individualism is the answer. Now guys, what happens with ultra-individualism is you die, right? I see all these far-right people talking about economic liberalism or social Darwinism or survival of the fittest, you know, spouting eugenics to support their fucking racist bullshit, spouting eugenics to support why they think, you know, the mentally ill shouldn't be taken care of. Guys, in the natural world, It's just pain and death and suffering all the fucking time. The reason that we are the apex predator is that we realized that is not a fit way to live. We are the fittest to survive because we abandoned survival of the fittest. Because we started farming, because we domesticated, because we used tools, because we stopped relying on nature to give us advancements, because we said, you know what, we can find another way without relying on nature to select in favor of people to survive. Many of our best advancements have happened from people who could only live and be around because society let them have the time and ability to do so. Stephen Hawking and so many great scientists, they arrived at the conclusions they came to because they had a different perspective from the norm, because they had conditions that meant that they would not have been capable of living a normal life in the sort of survival of the fittest sense. So many of our smart people got there, even if they didn't have some kind of condition that would have rendered them unable to survive in the real world. They managed to come up with these ideas because they had time. Right? The reason that you get so many great philosophers and scientists is because society evolves to a point whereby people have time on their hands to read, to get smart, think about things, and do stuff with that knowledge because they have time and they're bored. Right? You need to have a society of pampered, lazy people so that smart people can come up with ideas that can advance society. You need people to have relaxation time. You need people to be free from the tyranny of hunger and fret and how they're going to keep a roof over their head. You need people to have time to think, time to experiment, time to learn. And you can't have that in a survival of the fittest scenario. Also, again, like I said, in a survival of the fittest scenario, a lot of the things that these right-wing people like would not exist. Right? In a survival of the fittest scenario, we live in the matriarchy where we are ready, willing, and able to get eaten alive by women because they dictate reproduction. Right? And if they and even if they don't, it is because they condescend to let us. Right? We don't want survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest is a stupid fucking concept by which to run society. Survival of the fittest is how nature does things because nature has no fucking plan. Because there is no great creator. Because there is nothing except death and suffering. And if there is going to be any kind of life at all, it must adapt. And it is funny how humanity is the species that is most adaptable, and all these right-wing people use the survival of the fittest rhetoric as reason to abandon those adaptations. Survival of the fittest, so we shall destroy everything that makes us fit to live on this earth. There are problems with the world. and we don't face the same problems as in Fight Club, because the Fight Club is made in the 90s with the sort of the white male middle class, and it's talking about how Tyler Durden, this fucking Adonis, giving this speech about how we are a generation of men raised by mothers, and we have no great war, no great recession. Well, dudes, we're millennials. We are defined by having the Great War on Terror. I mean, for God's sake, suicide bomber decided to attack an Ariana Grande concert in fucking Manchester. Manchester! An Ariana Grande concert. It's like fucking Hitler deciding to lob a nuclear bomb at a fucking fun fair. How the fuck does that achieve your fucking objectives? Right? Apart from anything else, everybody knows that the political establishment of England only gives a shit about London. Attacking Manchester is like attacking England by prodding it in the shoulder, going, look at me, yeah. Anti-threatening, anti-terrifying, don't you just hate me? Yeah. Dude, England doesn't care, right? Because England's establishment only cares about London, right? And it's very tragic, the loss of life, but it's just like, really, what objectives were you achieving there? Truly, we will never be able to cope against the might of ISIS if they stop us from attending Ariana Grande concerts. Oh no! Truly, such culture would be destroyed. I mean, it's a tragic loss of life, and the families need time to grieve and what have you, and it's just stupid. We are, and I suppose that's part of my point again, is our great war now isn't because of the great apocalyptic doomsday weapon of all these different allegiances in the First World War. Our great war now isn't the Second World War against the Nazis. It isn't the Cold War between America and Russia. Our great war is against a bunch of fucking morons who just decide to hurt people because they're stupid enough to think it achieves their objectives. And the other thing about millennials is that we are defined by the banking crisis, by the economic recession. We have our Great War and we have our Great Depression, but we're still fucked. And we are more fucked than the characters of Fight Club are. Because at least they fucking have half-decent jobs. So yeah. Fight Club is an interesting film that resonates a lot. But it fails because in the telling of its message, it presents a problem and then it presents a solution and then it criticizes the solution that it presents without presenting a better solution. And that's part of why I actually like the film, because it doesn't tell you how you should live your life. It just tells you, okay, these things are bad. But it's like Blackadder in Blackadder Goes Forth, Sometimes he listens to Baldric, because even though Baldric is known to have very, very stupid plans, when you are fucked and being fucked daily and you have no other plans, even a stupid plan from a very stupid man will seem some kind of lifeline. And we see that this effect is happening to this day. We see it in the alt-right. We see it in Donald Trump. We see it in Breitbart. We see it in all these, you know, right-wing people who go postal and shoot up people and politicians and attack Parliament. We see it in all these predatory converters saying, "Hey guy, I have the answer. Believe what I say. Put your life on the line for what I say." This ultimately is how ISIS works. We haven't presented white men with a better solution, because the better solution is that we vote in socialists who actually provide us with decent lives. Right? The better solution is that we vote out the neoliberal establishment, we vote out the right-wing douchebags, and we vote in people who give a shit about us. Right? There's a whole lot of investment against doing that. Right? And again, I'm not saying that there is some kind of grand conspiracy. It's not. Right? Yes, Rupert Murdoch's empire has a lot of sway and control, but ultimately the reason that people in his empire write what he writes is out of enlightened self-interest. Is because I just do this because I want to keep my money flowing in, and I just want, because these people grow up in privileged backgrounds where they don't know any different. This you see all the time. These rich fuckers who come out saying it is so hard when you live on so much money, and they honestly believe it, because when you grow up with such privilege, when you live your whole life among such rich people using such expensive services, it doesn't occur to you to think about the plight of the people who rely on Medicaid, who rely on the NHS, who rely on public schooling, who rely on public roads, it doesn't occur to you to think about the plight of the common man, because you're just not aware. You're not acting as part of some great conspiracy. You're just a cog spinning for your own devices. It's just that there's a lot of different cogs like you at the top of the machine, spinning for their own reasons in ways that make sense for them, and they're spinning in the wrong ways, fucking over everybody else. There is no grand conspiracy. There are just lots of individual, little, flawed human beings fucking shit up because they don't know any better. But I'm not a nihilist. A nihilist believes there is no hope. I know there is hope. I know there is hope because I know that economics means that sooner or later the actions of the stupid minority at the top of society are going to come back and bite them in the fucking ass. It's just very unfortunate that by the time the people running society realize how badly they fucked up, it may already be too late for the vast majority of us. Climate change technological unemployment and demographic shifts are going to fuck us. They are going to fuck us hard without lube. And these problems are why we can guarantee that those at the top will change their minds, are why we can guarantee that every last idiot motherfucker watching my videos going, oh dude, you're just a cuck SJW who is living in your filter bubble SJW land, right? All these people who are being stupid and douchebaggy to me, I know that they are going to change their minds later, because they are going to get fucked by the same fucking load of bullshit that I'm getting fucked with now. Right? That's the thing about the great shitberg coming to fuck over all humanity. It will get to every last one of us in time. And it's not that there is a great plan that this should happen. It's just that you can pretty much guarantee that everybody's too fucking stupid to stop what they are doing that is helping to create the shitberg and ensure it comes to fuck us over. Anyway. So that was Fight Club. I am incidentally writing things. I have nearly finished a multi-part story that will probably piss off everyone, because I kind of feel a little like Sirius Black in The Prisoner of Azkaban. Like, I've served my time, I will damn well do the fucking time. No, I've served my time, I will damn well do the crime. I am hated by trans people for writing fiction presenting a trans cure, and I am hated by Nazis for being critical of Trump. Well, you motherfuckers, when I get this thing written, if I get this thing written and I get it published, then I will deserve every last fucking ounce of hatred towards me. because fuck it, I've had 2 years of this bullshit. And yeah, you know how I said that the problem with being a white man in today's society is that we don't get to believe in anybody fucking us over, and we just have to look at the sheer stark horror of how our lives are fucked over by just happenstance and coincidental stupidity. Well, kind of cheating a certain extent, because I am nursing a sort of controlled, fairly self-aware hatred for women and trans people for fucking over my life. So, we all have to believe in some great conspiracy fucking us over, no matter how deluded it is. It's just that I'm aware the conspiracy I'm believing in is a whole load of fucking horseshit. Anyway, I'm gonna say goodbye now. And yeah, once I've cooled down a little, I'm probably gonna do some more writing. Because I've got another story going on that's also gonna piss off a lot of people. Yeah. Turns out maybe it wasn't such a good idea to kind of, make this guy think that, he's so fucking evil. Because, after being hated by feminists and whatever for so long, it's, kind of like, then let me be evil. So I shall write. And at the same time, I shall write about what I believe in. And spoilers, what I believe in is not actually necessarily something that will have people hating me as much as my writing may make them want to hate me. Anyway, I'm gonna go away now. See you. Thank you for watching my main channel. Please remember to leave a like, favourite and comment. Shout out to the Dislike Club. Subscribe if you like what you saw, and share if you know someone who might be interested in the contents of this video. If you would like to help ensure more videos get made, there are a few options available to you. You can whitelist this channel in your adblock software to ensure what ad revenue you provide has a chance of making its way to me. If you sign up to make a regular monthly donation through my Patreon, then you will get to watch a selection of videos available exclusively to my Patreon supporters over at my Patreon page. One-off donations are payable through PayPal, or if that doesn't suit your sensibilities, you can gift items through Steam or Amazon via my public wish lists. Obviously, I don't expect anything, and the vast majority of my videos will remain free and ad-supported. All that remains is to say Trump should be impeached, the genocidal must be stopped, and institute universal basic income now.